I want to introduce you to a world of total equality where the difference between stubbing your toe and death by firing squad does not exist, because in this world, everyone and everything has only one health. Health is binary, armor is useless, and a bar fight is considered an extinction level event for everyone involved. In other words, it's total chaos and I love it. It's in the spirit of this chaos that we'll be attempting this week's challenge, to assassinate all major faction leaders and collapse the civilized world. But first, a word from our sponsor. Manscaped is a premium men's grooming and hygiene brand that offers a wide range of products. They were nice enough to send me the perfect package 4.0. The first thing I wanted to try was the trimmer, and let me tell you, after testing this extensively on not only myself, but friends and strangers I met at the bus stop, I can say with great confidence that it works very well. Its ergonomic design ensures comfort, while the skin-safe technology reduces nicks and cuts while shaving. Best of all, it's even waterproof, which makes it very easy for you to clean up after yourself. It has an LED power indicator to show you how much power you have left, and it can hold up to a 90-minute charge. Aside from the trimmer, we also have the crop preserver and the crop reviver, the crops being your testicles of course. The preserver can be applied anywhere for all-day body odor protection, while the reviver is more of a sweet Jimmy treatment whenever you need a little refresh down there. Finally, this package also comes with a disposable shaving mat which has many uses. Personally, I folded mine into a papier-mâché hat and put it on my water filter. I find it very amusing and it brings me great happiness. Use the link on screen or in the description to get 20% off this package with free shipping. And for a limited time, Manscaped will even throw in 2 free gifts: the Shed Travel Bag and the Manscaped Anti-Chafing Boxer Briefs. Thank you Manscaped for sponsoring this video. Now let's begin. Here we are, an impoverished and naked man whose life hangs in the balance with every step we take. We spawned in a small town called The Hub, the populace of which could best be described as a gang of shifty-eyed lunatics with a non-zero chance of harvesting your organs. I know this because I'm one of those lunatics. However, that doesn't make us immune to the dangers of this world, and so we're going to need to acquire some self-defense items. Normally I'd recommend some kind of club or automatic rifle. However, in a world where everyone has only one health, there's no need to over-engineer our solution. All we really need is any kind of projectile weapon whatsoever. So I went down to the local hardware store to scope out the selection. The shop owner not only has a crossbow, but he even has enough food and supplies to keep us going for days. However, we are hilariously poor, and so this presents us with a unique moral dilemma. Should we A, go to the nearby copper mine and slowly translate our physical labor into purchasing power in the form of copper ore, or B, should I punch him in the head and steal all of his belongings? Since I am a well-medicated and consummate professional, I obviously went down to the copper mine, mined some copper, socialized respectfully with the barkeeper and his staff, and then legally acquired my desired trade goods and left the store. Consider this a word of advice, viewer. Hard work always pays off. Now that we have our basic supplies, let's sit down and discuss our goals and how we plan to meet them. I've drafted a list of faction leaders that we'll be trying to assassinate, as well as some people who generally annoy me. Technically speaking, all of our targets combined have about 10 health, so this shouldn't be too difficult. However, it's not the killing that's hard, it's the staying alive after. Sure, I could easily kill Emperor Tengu. However, his 24 bodyguards would beat me so viciously that it would make a gang initiation look positively artistic by comparison. The solution to this dilemma is simple. We need to become the most ancient and powerful video game archetype in all of history. Yes, of course, I'm talking about the stealth archer. Whether it's Skyrim or Monopoly, shooting people with arrows from the corner of the room is surprisingly effective. I've created a list of necessary attributes for us to gain in order to metamorphose into this mythical creature. First, critical hits. The only logical reason to spend 45 minutes crouching through bushes is that you have a high-powered fetish for seeing large numbers, or crits as most people call them. Fortunately, we've got that base covered because our critical hit rate is functionally 100%. Additionally, we've already got the long-ranged weapon, so all we need now is to train our stealth and athletics, at which point we will have the necessary skills to graduate from public menace to full-blown full-blown international terrorist. Athletics is always easy. Pick a place anywhere on the map and run in circles until your carpal tunnel syndrome slowly overpowers the horse tranquilizers that you've been microdosing. Naturally, some places make better running tracks than others. For example, this lady didn't appreciate me breaking into her home at 2 a.m. to run laps around her coffee table, and it only got worse when I started violently ejecting human limbs from my inventory. But hey, you can't argue with the results. After a week, our athletic stat was thoroughly trained, and it was now time for us to turn to stealth. Power leveling stealth is basically challenging yourself to be as creepy as humanly possible. Some might say I've been power leveling stealth for 26 years straight. I know all the tricks. For example, hiding in a dark corner and watching someone sleep for 5 hours straight, absolute goldmine. I spent several days skulking around various cities doing my best impression of Ted Kaczynski. This gave me a great opportunity to covertly observe how the One Health mod had affected the power dynamics of Kenshi. I spent some time in the Holy Nation, and for the most part it was the same. The guards would still regularly decimate the hungry bandits, but every so often, a glimmer of hope. Sometimes the hungry bandit lands a hit and absolutely annihilates a level 60 paladin with his rusty pipe. In real life, the bear consumes the salmon, but in this world, 1 in 1,000 times, the salmon can eat the bear. It was inspiring to witness, because if this stupid, smelly, unemployed, scrawny, limp-dicked loser, moron, dipshit, fuckface can actually win, then maybe I have a chance too. Anyway, I continued to harass the local populace until I had acquired a total of 32 restraining orders against me. I decided this would be adequate, and so we set off to sow chaos in the rest of the world. And who will our first target be? Well, it's a portly young Shek by the name of Els. I chose him for 2 reasons. First of all, he's a rampant alcoholic, and I can't have him promoting such unhealthy and immoral lifestyles to my viewers. So naturally, we have to gun him down in the street like the wild dog he is. Second of all, he's terribly fat, and I think that will give us a better chance of shooting him before he punches us to death. Els lives all the way in Shobutai, so I began my journey eastward. Typically this biome is a little stressful because at any moment a giant insectoid rapist could emerge from its sand burrow and assault you. This stress is elevated substantially when you have only 1 health and no clothes. Between the man-eating bugs and foreign men trying to sex traffic me, I had to do a lot of killing, but eventually we managed to make it into Shobutai. Now we just have to find our target. He's known to frequent the outhouses of the city, not because he needs to use them, I'm pretty sure he just lives there. Anyway, we eventually found him and liberated him from his poverty by driving a crossbow bolt through his skull. I was worried that I may have to execute some elaborate escape plan at this point, but actually no one seemed to care. After killing exactly 1 homeless person in broad daylight, I felt ready to take out the richest man in all of Kenshi, Emperor Tengu. He is a trained killer who wields tremendous political power, and he's usually surrounded by dozens of bodyguards. But all of this means nothing in the face of my dollar store crossbow. I traveled to Tengu's home city and started casing the joint. Usually I go into these things with a complete lack of preparation, but I do have a plan for this one. Normally Tengu never leaves his throne room because of his crippling polio. However, thanks to some recent medical advancements, he's now able to go outside again to shop and spit on poor people. That will be our opportunity to strike. I set up on a little sand dune overlooking the town square, and I waited without moving a muscle for 3 days and nights, and then it finally happened. In the distance, I saw Tengu approaching. I prepared the crossbow and waited for him to get in range. I'm about to Lee Harvey Oswald this man's whole career. Actually, maybe not. I'm trying to use this turret, but no matter how many times I attempt to target Tengu, the game won't let me shoot him. This makes it very difficult to kill him, but not impossible. The game won't let me shoot at Tengu, but it will let me shoot at his bodyguards. Hypothetically, if my aim is inaccurate enough, I could shoot at his guard, miss, and accidentally hit Tengu, thus killing him as collateral damage. I attempted this plan no less than 50 times, each unsuccessfully. Eventually, I got angry and walked up to Tengu and shot him in the face. It's not as cinematic, but he's definitely dead. It is now time to excuse ourselves from the dinner table. The guards chased us for about 20 miles, but eventually they gave up when I started killing them. Now, this little assassination saga has taught me 2 things. 1, life is fleeting and we should take every moment we can to appreciate it. In 10 years, I'm sure we would give anything just to be back in this moment right now. And 2, if I'm going to continue to slaughter the innocent, I'm going to need a lot more crossbow bolts. The issue, of course, is that as we continue to perform unlicensed craniotomies on public figures, we will slowly lose access to more and more vendors across the world. Therefore, I believe we should seize the means means of production by creating our own crossbow factory. However, once we have a fixed address, our enemies will surely visit us weekly with intentions of curb stomping us into abstract art. Therefore, we need a base that is functionally impossible for our enemies to assail, and there's only one place where we can achieve that: the burning forest. This biome is disgusting, and under normal circumstances I would never be caught making a base here. However, it has a very unique advantage. Here, it is almost always monsoon season, and the monsoon is acid rain. With everything having only 1 health, acid rain is functionally the same as a planetary glassing. So all we have to do is find some waterproof clothing, make our base, and watch as hundreds of top-tier soldiers rush headfirst into death by precipitation. We are going to need some startup capital for this, so I snuck back into Heft and stole Tengu's body. I'm not sure if this counts as grave robbing since they left him in the street, but I don't really care either way. After dumping Tengu's body over the city walls, I was able to evade some guards and escape the settlement. I came back an hour later to scrape Tengu off the desert floor and haul him to Blister Hill to collect a $100,000 bounty. Unfortunately, I forgot to account for the fact that the Holy Nation is a fanatical cult led by crystal meth smoking lunatics, so instead of paying me a bounty, they decided to reward me with this. I killed the most powerful man in Kenshi, and all I got was this lousy coffee mug. Amazing. No, it's great. Really, I love it. After immediately pawning this holy relic along with some of Tengu's clothing, we at least managed to come up with around $60,000. It's not great, but it'll do. It was around this time I started to notice some changes going on in the world. There's something strange about these guards. In fact, they appear to be devolving into some sort of limbless meat spheres. My theory is that whenever a guard enters a fight, there's about a 50% chance they lose a limb in the process. But this won't kill them because they have plenty of allies to bandage their wounds. It does, however, result in the guard populace progressively becoming more aerodynamic over time, and it's not uncommon for you to see squads of guards patrolling the street with no arms. I suspect this will work in our favor later in the game, when we assassinate a public figure and the responding police force is all in wheelchairs. But I digress. After Tengu's little estate sale, we now have the requisite funds to execute our plan. I visited a few clothing stores and assembled a very eclectic but entirely waterproof outfit. Now I can travel through acid rain with 100% impunity, and so I began the base development in earnest. I went for an open concept, no walls, since I'm pretty sure everything in a 5-kilometer radius is dead. Initially, I just wanted to make a crossbow factory, but the more I built, the more I realized a vision of creating a covert training facility and establishing my very own order of assassins. By adding in some prisoner cages, training dummies, and basic food production, I can now use this as my headquarters to kidnap and train dozens of potential hitmen, which I can dispatch across the world like a swarm of girl guides, except instead of selling you cookies, they strangle you with piano wire. I went ahead and kidnapped 5 people and began the radicalization process. And no, I'm not worried about them trying to escape because I specifically asked them not to. Additionally, they're all naked, so if they take even one step outside, the acid rain will instantly melt off all of their limbs. With a few more crossbow bolts now in the inventory, we can resume our crusade. And who will be our next target? Why, none other than Infinite Wing Wang. In case you're unfamiliar, Wing Wang is a street person with a very eccentric personality. However, don't be deceived by his seemingly intractable schizophrenia because I believe it's entirely performative. I think Infinite Wing Wang is using his fractured sanity as a diversionary tactic to distract us from his real intentions. Establishing the Fourth Reich. I'm pretty sure about this one, maybe even 60%, so we're just going to go ahead and kill him. I traveled through the Fog Islands to the lovely city of Mongrel. Upon arriving in town, I had about 50 fogmen chasing me, which I politely deposited at every bar, shop, and guard post I could find. This had unexpected consequences. Usually, the guards can defeat the fogmen because they have better weapons and armor. However, with armor being useless, it was basically just a numbers game and the fogmen were winning. I hadn't even been here 5 minutes and the town was already collapsing. We need to move fast to find Wing Wang before the fogmen get him, but eventually I just found him casually meandering down the road as dozens of his friends were being devoured by feral bug people. In all the chaos, no one really cared when I decided to practice extreme acupuncture on his pulmonary artery. I waited around for the guards to try and arrest me, but I guess they were busy. So I just left and headed back to the base. Now, killing the mentally ill is, of course, not difficult, but some of the other targets on this list will require a team effort, so so I think it's time to expand our enrollment here at Order of Assassins University. For their diligent training, I bestowed my first initiates with actual clothes. This would allow them to safely go outside, thus marking the first time they've seen daylight in about 9 days. From here, our group traveled to the nearby swamp to abduct people and train them into professional hitmen. Mostly we indoctrinated strange individuals we found at the bar, but really we took anyone we could get our hands on. Eventually we managed to kidnap a total of 50 scared and confused vagrants, which we put to work in our dojo. After a few weeks and several courses of mind-altering drugs, they had graduated to 100% pure deranged gunmen. What followed was a completely unprecedented string of assassinations that rapidly changed the geopolitical landscape of Kenshi. For example, I traveled to the Shek capital where I punched their leader in the head. One shot, one kill. This caused the Sheks to enter a bizarre political power struggle, which eventually ended with Mukai the Mountain being elected king. It's really unfortunate for them, they didn't notice me hiding in the corner of the room, waiting for this to happen for the past 4 days. How did I survive? Well, I had a backpack full of sandwiches, and when that ran out, I just started slowly digesting my own body for sustenance. Remember, these are small sacrifices to make in the grand scheme of things. Anyway, I punched both of Mukai's arms off, which resulted in a high-speed pursuit where I chased him through the streets at 4 AM, and he screamed a lot and bled to death. This secondary assassination caused the city to be overtaken by a sect of ultranationalists known as Krall's Chosen.
Cool.
Following this, we traveled across the map to the Western Hive, where we engaged in some very meaningful dialogue with the Hive Queen. Unfortunately, I experienced a totally accidental and unplanned crossbow malfunction, which resulted in me shooting her in the face. Funnily enough, the same thing happened the next day when I visited the Southern Hive Queen. How embarrassing. The loss of 2 major political figures created a power vacuum in Okran's Gulf and Vane, which was filled by an infestation of fogmen. How disgusting. Bonus assassination. I snuck into the Dust King's tower and kidnapped him. But don't worry, I'm not going to kill you. You're going to kill you. I stripped him naked and took him to the middle of the desert where he would be participating in a blood sport-esque kumite. I locked him in an arena and sent my assassins in one after another. However, there's 2 important things going on here. 1, my assassins are on passive, so they won't fight back. And 2, they're all wearing heavy armor. Now, just like in real life, if you decide to pick a fist fight with a plate armor enthusiast, your fist is going to quickly become inoperable and it's going to hurt a lot. It's the exact same in Kenshi. When the Dust Bandit punches the heavy armor, he will inflict a small amount of damage to his hands. And since each limb has only 1 health, this will inevitably result in that. The Dust King kicked the assassin so hard that his entire leg exploded. But the fight's not over yet. Here comes another assassin, and there goes the arm. 1 more, and the last arm is gone. He managed to kill 4 assassins. That's a new record. Congratulations, you must feel amazing. Anyway, that's my lunch break. Back to work. Next up, Inquisitor Seta. Since I've destroyed all of the Holy Nation's enemies, we're on pretty good terms, which is probably why they didn't question me when I was building a harpoon turret aimed directly at Inquisitor Seta's head. You can probably guess what happened next. The Bugmaster was a bit more difficult. He's a bizarrely jacked computer programmer who has uploaded the consciousness of John Wayne Gacy to all 30 of his pet spiders. Sneaking in was off the table, so I just surrounded his tower with an army of 50 assassins, each armed with a crossbow and plenty of ammunition, and as the spiders sallied out, we peppered them with salacious amounts of crossbow fire. Eventually, the bugs became frightened of our weaponized autism, and we had to start sending people in after them. I'd send 1 man in to aggro a few bugs and pull them out into the kill box. The mortality rate for this occupation approached 100%, not because of the spiders, but because of the subsequent volley of 40 precariously aimed crossbow bolts. With the spiders now taken care of, I decided it would be amusing to surprise the Bugmaster by storming his throne room with 45 naked and untrained kung fu assassins. This resulted in a predictable amount of casualties, but eventually one of my subscribers managed to donkey punch the Bugmaster to death. Well done. While looting the Bugmaster's tower, I found he had a collection of 926 human teeth. Clearly, he also power levels stealth. Also, this is unrelated to our world agenda, but I took a quick break to see if I could punch a Leviathan to death. Turns out they're still pretty dangerous even with 1 health. We are now on our second last target, good old Phoenix. Him and I go way back. Phoenix lives in a very well-defended city, and unfortunately, after my most recent stunt with Inquisitor Seta, the Holy Nation and I aren't exactly on speaking terms, so gaining access to Phoenix may be rather difficult. To accomplish this, I will attempt to utilize the most neglected game mechanic in all of Kenshi, disguises. By stealing the uniform of an enemy faction, you can sometimes, maybe, if Venus is in retrograde, fool them into thinking you're on their team, thus allowing you to move freely throughout their territory. It's risky, but it just might work. I spent a few nights stalking the Holy Nation roads, and eventually I managed to pick off a guard with my crossbow. Once his body was left to decompose in the streets by his friends, I approached it and we swapped identities. For all intents and purposes, my name is now Igor, and I work for the Holy Nation. Amazing. Now we can infiltrate the city and assassinate their leader. I arrived outside the gates of Blister Hill. All that's left now is for us to get past the guards at the front gate. Our disguise is pretty good, but my character has the facial features of an eldritch horror from beyond the stars, and I'm worried that may draw some suspicion. Only one way to find out. I approached the guards and did my best to look racist. To my surprise, it worked, and they accepted me as one of their own. Oppress women and minorities, am I right, fellas? Anyway, with the guards now fooled, I beelined it for Lord Phoenix, because the longer we stay here, the higher our chance of detection. Upon making it to Phoenix's throne room, I did my best impression of a Tier 3 Amaranth sub by revealing my naked body and trying to kill him with a crossbow. Phoenix was quick on the draw. He almost closed the distance before I performed a tonsillectomy on him using my crossbow. This resulted in his immediate death. All that's left now is to escape. However, with all exits blocked and nearly 60 guards closing in on my position, my chance of surviving seems dubious at best. However, we have one last trick up our sleeves. You see, Carlos wasn't the only person we smuggled into the city. If we look at the Assassin HQ, you'll see there's no one there. That's because over the past several weeks I've been equipping them with various disguises and smuggling them into the city under false identities. That bakery in the corner of town? It's actually a secret den of highly trained assassins. The slave traders getting drunk at the bar, the homeless man performing sex acts in the alley, even half the police force, they work for me, and we're about ready to turn this city upside down. I activated my army of assassins in the main section of the city. Mayhem ensued. I had Carlos evade Phoenix's personal guards and slip outside where a small group of my conspirators were waiting. They escorted me to the main city block where total pandemonium had broken out. Guards fighting guards, roaming bands of homeless maniacs, and people being beat to death with frying pans. Such chaos sustains me in a deeply personal way. In all this confusion and disorder, I was effectively able to walk right out the front door. An entire army of assassins had sacrificed themselves to the cause. But to go down fighting is all a man can really aspire to in the cruel world of Kenshi. I too would have sacrificed myself in this battle, but we have one last matter to settle. Aside from being one of the most powerful characters in the game, Catalan is a pretty tragic figure. Following the collapse of the old empire, he rose to prominence in an attempt to restore order to the world. His obsession with this goal eventually led him to adopt some very morally questionable policies, such as child prisons, slavery, and mandatory lobotomies. He has since been overthrown and exiled to the Ashlands, where he has remained for several hundred years. He's also canonically insane. In many ways, Catalan is Carlos from the past, or perhaps a different future. Two men who have forsaken everything and everyone close to them in an attempt to change the world. It is now time for one of these figures to be put to rest. But before we can take him on, there's one important thing we have to deal with. Catalan has an army of, no exaggeration, 120 headless simps. And he thinks it's really funny to call them in to power molest you while you try to fight him. On the other hand, I think it's really funny to preemptively spend 2 hours killing them one by one with a crossbow. For the sake of brevity, I've gone ahead and put this on 4000% speed. After euthanizing the entirety of the Catalan fan club, we are now prepared to face our final foe. However, there's one issue. I've noticed that the 1 health mod doesn't appear to work on prosthetics, meaning that Carlos's robotic arm technically has 83 health, and I feel that's not really in the spirit of the challenge. As penance for my accidental transgressions against the challenge, I will be unequipping my arm and fighting Catalan with nothing but a rusty katana. This may seem like a death sentence, but what Catalan doesn't know is that in the spirit of total equality, I've spent the past 200 days training my attack and defense to be roughly the same as his. We now enter a battle against the strongest man in Kenshi that may be decided in a single blow. After some autistic screeching, Catalan was upon on us. He attacked roughly 3 times a second, and even with our defense stat of 86, we were barely able to keep up. This can't continue for long. We were able to sneak in an attack on his chest, which under normal circumstances would have been a death blow. However, Cathlon's armor actually mitigated almost all of the damage. In response, Cathlon vivisected Carlos in one fell swing. Seemingly, it's all over. However, in this world, 1 in 1,000 times, there is a glimmer of hope. Our attack on Cathlon didn't do enough to kill him, but it did cause him to bleed. And little known fact, Cathlon doesn't actually have any medical items in his inventory, which means that over the next 2 days, this wound slowly drained the life from his body until he collapsed and died on his throne. And with that, several days after Carlos has decomposed and disappeared, our challenge is now complete. The Holy Nation and United Cities are in shambles, and the only major powers remaining are ethno-supremacists and cannibalistic bugs. Truly, this is total equality. I want to thank this month's patrons for helping to fund this video, and finally, thank you for watching.